Hello everybody, welcome to this instruction video. This video I'd like to show you part 11 of Ubuntu. Ubuntu is a Scheepjes crochet along 2018 designed by Deirdre Ice from Look at What I Made. In part 11 we're going to be making these beautiful flower corners. That's what we're doing in part 11, and we're also going to be filling out our border here with our main color. I'll take you through all the rounds that make up part 11. And as I do so, I'll be using Scheepjes Stone Washed XL and River Washed XL yarn because I have the large kit. I'll take you through all the rounds that make up part 11. Thank you for watching. I hope it's a useful video for you. I'm going to start in any shell corner. You've got here this shell with your 4 marked stitches. In this round we're going to start in the marked stitch, that space there closest to the shell. We'll work the shell and then finish in the stitch after the shell. So this one will finish there. This is all we're going to be working on the one corner, and then you repeat that on the other corners as well. I have contrast color 3 here. I'm going to attach that in this marked stitch. So chain 1 space, attach that with the slip stitch. You can now remove the stitch marker if you don't need it anymore. Chain 1 to start the round. We're going to move over. I've still got some threads here that I need to work away, but that's not a problem. We're going to work, I'm just going to open this up. We're going to work in the chain spaces of round 17, so they're between those double trebles, those chain spaces there, chain 1s, and the chain 1 space to the back from round 18. So I'm going to be working through both the space from 17 and 18, so you're going to be covering basically in between that gap there. That's where you're going to be working, and then covering both of those spaces. So you're going to be tucking them together. On over, and we go in this space work a 2 treble bobble. So insert in there. That's the first leg, yarn over, and in that same space. So you see I'm covering both of those spaces and take them off. You'll notice that your chain, your slip stitch here will open up. Just pull your yarn tail back and that'll close it back up. Chain 2, and now we repeat another 2 treble bobble in the same space. So 1 and 2, and take them off. And I'm going to pull it tight. In the background you'll hear my hamster going nuts. Chain 2. Repeat in the next chain space. In the next space, so actually over both of those chain spaces I should say, a 2 treble bobble, take them off, chain 2, and another 2 treble bobble. 2, take them off. There you go. Chain 2, and moving to the next space. Again repeat, 2 treble bobble, 1, 2, take them off, chain 2, 1, 2, take them off, chain 2, and then in your last space here work again 2 treble bobbles with a chain 2 in between. That's 1, again covering both of those loops. You're really going through and through. Chain 2, 1, to take them off. There we go. Now only a chain one. Chain one. It's the same as on that side there. You also only had the chain one there. And then close with a slip stitch in the first marked stitch after the shell. That's that stitch there. That first marked chain one space. You can remove the stitch marker, you don't need it anymore. And you can also cut your yarn. And I really need to work away some yarn tails. I'm sometimes a bit lazy with this. That completes one corner flower row 1. Need to repeat this on your other 5 corners also. So you're going to work 5 of these, more of these corners. Then we're going to work a second flower row only in the corner, and then we're ready to start working long rounds again. So repeat this 5 more times on your other corners. Flower row 2. Again, only going to working around the corner, and this you'll be doing on all 6 your corners. I have contrast color 4 on my hook with a slip knot. And this is also the last round in which you'll be using contrast color 4. That applies to contrast color 3 as well, as we used for the previous round. So if you're low on yarn, you must, from your kit, that's correct. You don't need them anymore for the last part. We're going to start in the marked stitch. In that stitch we're going to work a back post double crochet. So around the stitch, and that stitch marker is just maybe just a little bit in the way, but around that stitch work back post double. Leave the stitch marker where it is. We're going to use it again later on, so just leave that. Chain 1, and then get a bit more yarn. Then we're going to work a 3 treble bobble in the chain space, the chain 2 space from the previous flower round. Going to be working chain 3 or 3 bobbles, 3 treble bobbles in each of these chain spaces. That's what I'm trying to say. So in that first one, and this is of course the same as working 3 trebles together, but you're working them all in one space. Chain 3, then in the next space again it's 1, 2, 3, and take them off. Chain 3, going to have 7 of these bobbles. It's 1, 2, 3, take them off, chain 3, and there we go, a bit more yarn, and here we go again, 1, 2, 3, take them off, 1, 2, 3, chain, and again 1, 2, 3, take them off, 1, 2, 3, and the last, oh no, not the last one, I've got one more, 1, 2, 3, take them off, 1, 2, 3, and then here's the last space, that last space work, a 3 treble bobble, 2, 3, and take them off. So you've got all the way around, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those bobbles. Chain 1, and then move over to the marked stitch, where you're going to work a back post double crochet around that stitch. Around that stitch, work a back post double. You can cut your yarn stitch marker, we're going to move. So the first one we leave, the second one we're going to move one stitch forward, so moving it to the next double crochet. It was there, so move it up one stitch. And that completes the corner here. Repeat all of this on your other 5 corners also, and then we're ready to start again in the main color with long border rounds. Round 19 of the border, main color yarn on my hook with a slip knot, and we're going to start on any flower, the last bobble here, this last bobble. We're going to start there by making a standing front post double. So around that stitch from the front to the back out the other side. You kind of use this to tuck that flower petal together. A front post double, and this is of course a standing stitch. That's our first stitch. Now we're going to start the repeat unit on the straight edge. We're going to come to the marked stitch, that stitch there, and work 3 trebles in that stitch. So this is 1, 2, 3 trebles in that one stitch. Take out the stitch marker and move it. If I can get it out, actually, there we go, it's caught a little, and move it to the first of those 3 trebles. So in the first of those 3 trebles. In the next stitch, work a half treble. If you want to check if you're at the correct place, you should have 3 stitches left before you get to the chain space. So that's just a double check for you that you're correct. If you accidentally move this position, this mark to the wrong position, you might have less or more stitches here. So that's just a checkpoint. See, you've got 3 left, and then you get the chain space. Chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to rotate my work. Now we're going to skip 6 stitches and the chain space and come on this side, the equivalent stitch as that last half treble there. And then we're going to start a repeat unit, which we'll do 10 times. We're going to skip 1, 2, 3 stitches, the chain space, and then come down 1. This is the half treble, that's 1, so it's 1, 2, 3, and then here number 4, the half double goes, the half treble goes in that. And just flip the chain to the back. This half treble is start of a repeat unit. So that half treble is in the 4th stitch from the tip. In the next stitch we make two trebles in the next stitch. So 1, 2. Over the next 3 stitches we're going to make a cluster. So in this stitch, that stitch, and the 3rd leg will be here in the chain space there. And the cluster is the same as a treble 3 together. That's 1, here the second 2, and then the 3rd leg is in that chain space 3. You've got 4 loops on your hook. See where they're all at and take them all off. I'm going to come to the other side and do the same here, so in reverse order of what we did there. So in the chain space is the first leg of it, the cluster, so that's 1. Then go to the 2nd position, 2, and then come to the 3rd position here, and that's 3. Take them all off in one go. The next stitch, 2 trebles. We're just going to mirror what we've just done. It's 2 trebles, and then here in the last stitch work a half treble. You can now see, if I just pop this back, how you're starting to fill out the gap between the triangles, and that's actually what we're wanting to do. Chain 4, 2, 3, 4, and then again skipping the same amount of stitches, so that means 1, 2, 3 stitches, the chain space, and then 1. That first one is that half treble. That's really a hard stitch to see. That's 1, 2, 3, and here in position number 4 you work the half treble, pop that chain space to the back again, and this half treble is exactly the same as that half treble there. So all of this I've just done once with you. Do 9 more times, so filling out this this valley here. If you do the repeat quite a few more times, you'll end up you'll end up here in this last triangle. I'll see you at that last triangle, and then we just need to do the flower as well. So do this repeat 9 more times, and then I'll see you after that. Almost to the corner. Here's my flower corner on the last triangle. So I just need to repeat or finish the last repeat. That's chain 4, 4, and then skipping the usual amount of stitches. I'm going to make a half treble on the other. 1, 2, 3. Skip the chain space, and then 1, 2, 3. And on this side of the corner, make the half treble. At this point you have 1 stitch left, and then you have the marked stitch. In that last stitch, going to work 1 treble. Important here, only 1 treble. So don't go autopilot here and work 2, only 1 treble. And then in the marked stitch, work 2 trebles. And that's 1, 2 trebles. Stitch marker you can remove. You don't need it anymore. For the corner, you've got the flower here. We're going to do around all those 7 bobbles. Going to work a front post double crochet. So around the first one, front post double, and they're going to do chain 3s in between. Go to the next one and chain 3. Then again a front post double and chain 3. So you're going to have 7 of these front post doubles. You're going to have 6 chain 3 spaces. And 1, 2, 3. And I've got 2 left. That one. 1, 2, 3, and then here's the last one. Again, the last one with the front post double. That is the corner right there. Well, not so much a corner as this is more of a full flower. Then we're ready to start the next repeat on the next straight edge. You've got the marked stitch, and they work 3 trebles. 1, 2, let me just work 1 more. So this is 3, and we'll move the stitch marker to the first of those 3 trebles. You can see how this is exactly the same as the last start of the last repeat, or the repeat we did last time. So in the next stitch work a half treble, then chain 4, coming to the other side of the triangle, and start the small repeat where you're filling out all of these valleys. Go all the way around, and when you come here you'll work that back post double, the chain 3, and then close on the equivalent of this stitch here with a slip stitch. That's a standing front post double. You're going to close on that, and then you're ready for the next round. Leave your yarn attached because next round we'll be using the same color. Round 20 of the border. Currently in that standing double crochet stitch, or actually it's a front post double from the previous round. So I'm in there. I'm just going to slip stitch into the next stitch. This is the stitch with the marker. At this point you can remove the markers because this marker is to help you see where the straight edges start. Chain 1, then this chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So in the same stitch, going to work a double crochet. That's the first stitch of this straight edge. And then also on the next 3. So those 3 stitches, also work a double crochet on each of those. And 3. Now I'm going to start a small repeat unit that we're going to do 10 times. Let's start here in the chain space until the last stitch here, this half double there. In the chain space, start with 4 double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4 double crochets. I'm going to skip the next stitch. That's this stitch here. Is actually a pretty hidden stitch. It's a nice one to skip. And then go to the next, and there work a half treble. And then the next stitch work a half treble. On the next stitch, which is the first cluster stitch here, going to work a treble. So 1 treble on there. And in the next stitch, which is the second treble, you make the second cluster, you make 2 trebles. So the first cluster has 1 treble and the second cluster has 2 trebles to help you remember. Next stitch, the stitch here after the cluster, you get a treble, and you have 2 stitches left before the next chain space, and do a half treble on each of those. So 1 and 2. Now, this bit here, starting from that first double until this last half treble, do this 9 more times, so in all of these spaces. And the next chain space, going to do 4 doubles, skip the first stitch, then work a half treble, a treble, 2 trebles, treble, and the last 2 stitches a half treble on each. So repeat this stretch here 9 more times. I'll see you at the end of that last repeat, just for the last few stitches and also how to go around the corner. I've done the repeat 10 times and I'm now almost to the corner. That's this flower edge here, that's the corner. So I have 1 chain 4 loop left. In this chain 4 loop, going to work 4 double crochets. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. You have 4 stitches before we get to the corner. And those 4 stitches work a double crochet on each of those. And especially this first one here can be a little hard to get into, that half double or that half treble there. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 double crochets. We're now going to work the corner, so this completes the straight edge. So for the corner, chain 4, 2, 3, 4. And now we're going to come down and around these 2 treble clusters. For me it's in the green here. This is from flower row 1. Going to work a back post double crochet around those with a chain 1 in between. So that means that is that stitch there. but from the back, for working from the front, this is rather, can be a bit tricky. So if you turn your work, you flip it over to have the back facing you, it's actually going to be much easier, because that is then your first stitch. Here's the second, there's the third, the fourth, and so on. Just a note about the first stitch. This isn't your first stitch. You want to go around the flower petal. So that's this side. I've done the chain 4. That's to bring me down to this level. Then around that first flower petal, work a back post double. Well, it looks like a front post double from this side. If you look at it from the front, you see, okay, there's the stitch I just made. So make sure you go around the flower petal like this, and not around it like, if I just open this up, because it's very easy to kind of work through here, but that you don't want. You want to work through there. So that's the first one. Chain 1. Move on to the next flower petal. Again, back post double, chain 1. The next, back post double. Here's again the next, back post double, chain 1. So you've got chain 1s in between. Chain 1. I'm just going to pull this blanket a bit up. And let me see, I have, yes, I've just done a chain 1, so there I've got another back post stitch to do. Chain 1, look from the front, see how far I am. Still need to do 2 more petals, those I've already done. And then this one here, okay, I've got a few loops too many. Chain 1, and then the last one. And again here, important, don't go like this. I'm going to work it like this, and I'll show you that what you don't want. You see where it's now? You see how it's up there? You don't want it up there. See, you want it over here. So this is a mistake that's easy to make on this side and on that side. I'm just going to take this out. If you look here, you want to go around the flower petal. And just work that double crochet. There. Chain 4, 2, 3, 4, and this is to bring you back up, because you had to go down, then work this around, and now you need to come back up. And after the chain 4, we're going to start in the marked stitch. That's why we mark this stitch, so we know exactly where it is. And in that stitch, work a double. Now you can remove this marker, you don't need it anymore. And on the next 3 stitches, also work a double. These 4 stitches are exactly the same as the 4 stitches we started with. That means here you're now going to work 4 doubles and then do the rest of this repeat. Go all the way around. When you get to your first stitch, that's going to be this double crochet, the equivalent of this stitch. Close on that stitch with a slip stitch, and not the chain 1 that we made, but actually the full double crochet. Then you can also cut your yarn, because we're using the main color still for the next round, but we'll join in a different place, so you can cut your yarn. Round 21 of the border, I have here the main color on my hook. And you cut your yarn in the last round, even though we're using the same color, because we're going to start in a different position. This is still flower petal. And we're going to go to the third chain loop here. See, there's 1, 2, 3. In there, to start with a standing double crochet. We're going to work all of the stitches in this flower, by the way, we're going to work over both of those chain loops. So over both of them, start with a double crochet. Then a half treble, again around both. I'm just going to move things up a bit because I need another treble in here. And then a treble. This is half of your corner. Chain 1, and that chain 1 is your new corner. And mark this chain 1 with a stitch marker so that you can easily find it on the next round. So mark your chain 1. Now it won't surprise you that in the next space, working around both of those loops, work a treble, a half treble, and finish with a double crochet. That's your new corner made. You see there, your new corner. For the straight edge, in the, there's just a bit of fluff here. In the next space, work 3 double crochets. It's 1, 2, 3 double crochets, and in the next space also work 3 double crochets around both of those loops, so you're really tying everything together, and that really helps these flower petals to be really pronounced. We're going to finish this part by working a treble. We're going to make this treble around this space here. Let me show you what I mean. So so you've got the chain 1 space here. So we're not going to work in that chain 1 space from the flower, but actually around the entire thing. So in the chain 1 space and the stitches of round, I believe this is round 19, so around both of them, and then work a treble. So that way you're kind of tucking away that little loop and making a nice, just filling up this gap. We're going to continue and work the first 6 stitches along this edge, and this first stitch here now kind of falls a little bit to the back. So there, that is the first stitch. See how it's kind of being almost worked away here by the treble we just made. So make sure you get into that first stitch properly. That's the first of 6 double crochets. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the last one, 6. Chain 1 and then skip the next stitch, which is going to be that one. If you want to double check if you work, if you start, especially if you started in the correct stitch, your second double crochet here, you've got 4 double crochets in the chain 4 loop. That second double crochet is where we finished with that last double there. If you just want to check if you're still on track. If you're in the third one here, you accidentally skipped that first stitch. Going to work a repeat unit. That's going to be, which we'll do 10 times, 11 times, not sure. No, 10 times. We're going to work 10 times, and that will be 11 double crochets, chain 1, skip a stitch. Now remember, we're just skipping a stitch, then go to the next, and then work a double crochet. That's the first of 11. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 11 double crochets, and again number 11 has fallen in the second of the 4 double crochets you have in that chain loop there. Chain 1, skip the next stitch, and the stitch after work the first double of again 11 double crochets. So this bit we're going to repeat 9 more times. So work 11 doubles, chain 1, skip a stitch. Work that 9 more times, and then I'll see you at the last part of this round for the corner. Just done another 11 double crochets. I still need to chain 1, then skip the next stitch. It's this one. And then there are 5 stitches left here on this edge. Going to work a double crochet on each of those. So skip that one, and then here that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 double crochets. To work a treble, and that's again to cover this entire stitch here. So in that chain space, covering the stitches from that I've got in the main color here, so covering everything, work a treble. We move to the chain space, chain 3 space, and work 3 double crochets. 3, and the next chain space again 3 doubles, and we're again going to cover both of those spaces. 1, 2, 3, and now we're going to work on your corner. So that means here one double, then a half treble, and then a treble. Chain 1, place the stitch marker here, that's your new corner, and then come down the other side. So that's a treble, half treble, and double. And then this is your new corner. This corner is of course exactly the same as the corner we made on the start of this round. So that means we're going to do everything again we just did. So chain in this chain space 3 doubles, in the next chain 3 doubles, then that stitch across there on the other side, and then all of these repeats everything all the way around. You're going to close on your first stitch with a slip stitch, and then you can actually cut your yarn because we're using a new color for the next round in which will be in part 12 actually. And when you're all done, this is what your work looks like. We've made this beautiful flower corner on each of our corners, and we've filled up the edges in between the triangles. That's where we are at the moment. We'll see you back next week for the last part already of Ubuntu. Hope to see you then.